The bureaucrats and City Hall types are not exactly thrilled when you take to the airwaves to vent on 1460 WVOX.
1460 WVOX.
Stay tuned now for Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome, everybody, to Westchester Eye on the Radio. I'm Peter Moses with my co-host Ardina Seward. John Sharan was unable to come in today. How are you doing, Ardina?
Doing great. We're still laboring on Labor Day, but that's our mission for today because we have a great guest. So we have no excuse not to work today.
Did you want to talk at all about the dead senator from Arizona, John McCain, or no?
Well, yes. I mean, we had a moment of silence for him last week, and perhaps we should have another moment of silence for him today because John McCain, regardless of his critics, was a great, fabulous man. I had the pleasure of photographing him. One thing I think that people, I want the audience to get a small insight into John McCain, something that they didn't see on TV. Every time McCain spoke, he carried a pencil in his hand, and I believe it was in his right hand. And with the other hand, he would twist that pencil very tightly for the length of time that he was speaking. And McCain did that to focus, to concentrate, and it was a way, I believe, to dispel any kind of anxiety. And
I never knew that. Was that said on television, or you know that yourself?
I saw that because I photographed him, and I purposely cropped every time he spoke. I had to crop above his hands because I didn't want the audience to see him turning that pencil. But it was very moving. It was, honestly, at some point, it almost brought me to tears because you consider the fact that this was years, decades after his experience,
incarceration,
after his incarceration,
prisoner of war,
and the fact that here was a man
in Vietnam
who still bore the remnants of that experience.
Absolutely.
But he was so focused and so poised that you would never know. And that pencil, let me tell you, that pencil never stopped turning in his hands.
That's interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah.
I never heard anybody talk. None of the talking heads on CNBC.
Because because it was
CNN and MSNBC.
Because it was one of those things that we never talked about. We never spoke about it because you didn't want to
embarrass.
You didn't want to embarrass him. Even when he had his second bout with cancer, you wanted.
But that would make it even less likely you want to do that.
Well, exactly. But you wanted to photograph him from an angle that was flattering. I mean, again, he endured so much, but yet still gave so much, and blessings to his family, and may his legacy continue, and may he rest in peace.
It's a great story, Ardina.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. By the way, listeners, Ardina and I didn't really talk about this ahead of time, except that we both thought very highly of John McCain. But I had no idea that the story was coming out. That's interesting.
Yeah.
We have an interesting guest today, someone who's not from here.
That's right. Chris, my friend Chris.
Chris Bleicher is a neon artist. She's located in Munich, Germany. And she has a website called Peep Art. PEEPART.com. So www.peepart.com. Interesting stuff. And she works with neon. She says she believes in exoticism, eroticism, ecology, and humor. That's a lot of different schisms. That's two different schisms, and ecology and humor.
You left out exorcism. I'm kidding.
Oh, does she do exorcism?
No exorcism. No exorcism.
We don't do that in the Jewish religion, to be honest with you. That's one of the things. She also has a show coming up. She has a show coming up from September 5th to the 23rd, which is why she's in the U.S. I do not know where it is because it's not written on. Okay, yes, it is. It's at the Gallery Artifact on 84 Orchard Street in Manhattan. 84 Orchard Street would be a block or two in from Houston, which means it's very near that paragon of great smoked meats Katz's Deli.
Cholesterol City. Chris and I are both vegetarians.
Well, do not go to Katz, but there is a great place to get something called a knish. That's also on Orchard, not on Orchard Street, on Houston Street, and everything they serve there is vegetarian. Are you going to go there?
Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to go on Wednesday, and I encourage everybody to come because it's going to be an incredible show. Don't worry about parking because if you're driving, generally you can find a spot after 6 p.m. The commercial spots become available to regular. And you're better off parking on Orchard or Allen than you are on Houston. So it's really hard sometimes to get spaces on Houston. And if you don't know that part of the city, Houston is the dividing line between the Lower East Side and the East Village. And you'll have lots of fun. You'll meet Chris. She'll talk about her art, and beyond that, you're going to be enlightened because Chris's art is not depressing art. It is art that has color. Well, look at the show. What it's called, light. Neon Paradise. You go in. If you can go in there feeling depressed, I guarantee you, when you leave, you're going to be walking on cloud 9. And we've said so much about her art. We're going to let Chris describe her art. So, Chris, tell us about your work and why you do it and why you choose the colors and the medium that you choose. When I started with neon light, the light came to me. I created a piece of artwork and I wanted to divide day and night, but as well combine it. And so I started with the neon light. And the light gives a special flair to every ambience. It's not cool, it gives you really a good feeling. And that is important, what I want to give to people, the joy of living. And my art is my passion. I love to do it, and I'm just creative when I feel good. And I get the reward of people when I give all my positive energy into my artwork from the good feeling and reward I get through people, the pleasure they have. I have a question for you. Yes. Working in neon, are you working with neon colors, or all of your art is glass that gets plugged in so it lights up? It's a glass what gets plugged in. It's in the back. There is a transformer what makes the technical stuff, but it's not neon color because neon color it's like a painting with a special type of color, and it would lose the color during years. It would not be consistent. And the material I use is made by a sign factory on my design. And it's very complex. So it's neon lights. It's neon lights. And what do they look like when they're not plugged in? Oh, you can see different colors. There are some neon glasses are transparent. Some ones are red or green or blue. I have the choice when I make the design. So the artwork, even when not plugged in, is interesting to look at. Of course. And the artwork... Because most neon lights, when you see them in stores... like for a beer or something. Yes. When the lights are off, they look dead. They look dead. No. The artwork, you have the view on the artwork during daytime, and it looks different. It's a piece of art. And during nighttime, or when the daylight changes, the artwork changes as well. That's interesting. Well, we're going to be going to break now. You're going to get a lot more time to talk in our next quarter hour after we go to a Fox News break and Fox Business break. We have the great Chuck as the engineer today. Chuck Donegan. And this is Westchester Eye on the radio on WVOX, WVOX.com. And with Chuck manning the board today and not Nick. Nick, I hope you're listening, and I hope you're having a good day off. This is Westchester Eye on the radio, and we will be back soon. Not right away, but back soon.
The powerful Wall Street Journal called WVOX America's quintessential community station, and it's all your damn fault. 1460 WVOX.
1460 WVOX.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back, everybody, on Labor Day Monday. I hope you are listening and not laboring today. We are laboring for you. We're working for you here at WVOX, Westchester Eye on the radio. I am Ardina Seward with Peter Moses, minus John Charan, but plus our guest, Chris Bleicher, who is here from Munich, Germany. And Chris is a neon sculptress, and she has a show coming up, big show, downtown Orchard Street, 84 Orchard Street on September 5th, which I want
through the 23rd.
Through the 23rd, so you don't have to come. It would be
Not
nice,
just one day.
It would be nice if you would come to the opening, because that's a big day, but you can see it on another day up till September 23rd. And also, if you have any questions, I forgot to tell you, you can call in 914-636-0110. That's 914-636-0110 if you have a question about her art, her website, her sculpture, how she does it. And I've talked so much. I want Chris to talk now. Chris, you talked before the break about your work and what your work means to you and what inspires you. What is the hardest part of your work? I know you had to schlep a whole bunch of stuff from Germany to the Lower East Side.
And she not only has to paint these things, but she has to work in glass.
And you have to work in glass, so you have to...
And electricity.
Right, so you got to activate your technical brain on the left side, and on the right side, you got to activate your creative brain. So how do you do that?
So the most important thing is safety first. So I have to combine, as you tell now, the technical stuff with the creativity. So to do something beautiful is not enough. It has to be created with the technology together. And as I'm talking about preserving nature in combination with technology, it fits to my work. And the most important thing when I do a transportation is to arrive safely with my neon glasses. Because when the car is bumpering on the heavy roads, so I'm checking everything is fine, and I brought everything fine to New York City from Chatham, where I have my stuff.
That's right. You did something. I want you to understand. Chris did something that a lot of, I would say, big men wouldn't do. A huge amount of her collection is stored in a warehouse in Chatham, New Jersey. Now, to transport it from Chatham to the Lower East Side, she had to rent a truck. And Chris didn't rent just any truck. She rented a 15-footer, loaded all the stuff on that truck, into that truck by herself, got a quick instruction on how to distribute the load, and then drove it from Chatham to the Lower East Side, praying to her angels, looking through the side view mirrors, I should say, and she braved New York City traffic, something that a lot of us wouldn't do. So that was all for the sake of art, and she got everything there, and then to boot found a parking space right in front of the gallery, which
that's amazing.
That's what we said. So again, her angels, and Chris does pray to her angels, and I believe that they guide her every step of the way. She was able to get that from, I believe Chatham is a good hour and change from New York City, but she did it, which is pretty amazing.
Yes, I went from Morton Street, Manhattan, to Chatham, because the car rental was at Morton Street. I went to Chatham, loading the truck, and then I returned to the gallery in Lower East Side. And I had to take the truck route because the truck is too big for normal streets. But I got everything fine. It was a perfect working day. But I was praying to my angels, please give me help.
Well, they certainly did. And I'm sure that the angels are going to help you sell your art, because you don't want to have to take a lot of it back to Munich. You want a lot of it to end up in people's homes, which would be wonderful, because the whole purpose, as you said before, is to bring light, to bring joy, and not to depress people. And also, in addition to your neon sculpture, you have a unique niche in your art where you design urns for pets, urns for human remains. So tell us a little about your urns too.
Yes, I'm in Germany the first artist who started to paint pet urns and pet coffins and urns and coffins for human beings. and I had a performance in the year 1998. I was talking about the financial difficulties of contemporary artists, and in comparison to Vincent van Gogh, the famous Flemish artist who never was successful during his lifetime. Because I'm in a group of artists and knows that many artists cannot sell during lifetime for a good price good artwork. So I wanted to talk about that. And I asked a farmer to grow 2 fields with sunflowers for my sunflower happening. And I decorated the German museum in the heart of Munich with 14,000 fresh sunflowers in one night. So I forgot to apply for the Guinness Book of Records.
Wait a second. Let us rewind that for a second. You decorated the museum with 14,000 sunflowers?
Yes, in one night. Fresh sunflowers.
Wow. How was that possible? I mean, that's a staggering amount of flowers.
And the difficulty is the nature. You have to know what type of flowers and what the weather, about the ground, how it is. So it's not so easy that the sunflower can flourish at a certain day. It was an adventure, but I got it. And I decorated that show with the sunflowers because the coffin of Vincent van Gogh was decorated by real sunflowers as well. And I painted a coffin with sunflowers, what will be later my own coffin. And I presented it in that very time in the public of the museum. It was a 2,000 square meter space I had for my show. And people, I sent sunflower seeds to people in springtime. Please put it in earth and bring the grown sunflowers to my happening. And some people write me letters, my sunflower is still 30 centimeters. They did doing it.
And we're going to talk about that soon on the other side of the break. You're listening to Westchester Eye on the radio with Chris Bleicher, fresh from Munich. So stay with us, folks. We have a lot more coming.
And remember, she has a show coming up September 5th to the 23rd at Gallery Artifact at 84 Orchard Street.
On the Lower
East Side of Manhattan. This is Westchester Eye on the radio on WVOX, WVOX.com. We will
be back.
Right back.
Sooner or later, someone's going to blab on WVOX.
1460 WVOX.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Here we are again, back for our final half hour. I don't want to make it sound like final because we have so much stuff to cover. So much stuff to talk about. I am Ardina Seward with people sitting beside the magnificent Peter Moses, who's there looking at his phone, his computer, ignoring me.
Not ignoring you, hearing every word you say.
No, I'm just teasing. And
Jeez.
we're minus John Sharan today. He'll be back next week, but in his place we have Chris Bleicher, who is a guest, and not only a guest, Chris is a special guest because she not only lights up the room, but lights up her art.
Lights up the lights.
Lights up the lights with neon. And we've talked a lot about art and lights, but we're going to have to kind of move to a rather darker subject. Chris is from Munich, and there is in Munich now a large migrant population.
It's not just Munich.
It's not just Munich. It's all
there's 1 million people who moved to Germany from Middle Eastern countries.
and it's basically all over Europe.
And it's been very controversial in Germany.
It's been very controversial because the artist community, I'm pretty sure throughout the world, has been is known as a progressive community.
They were welcoming, I would assume.
Are welcoming. And at this point, the influx has strained the goodwill of the artist community in Munich, and it's the cause of a lot of debate. So, Chris, I will let you inform the audience about it and what's happening now and how artists feel about the migrant community and what artists are doing or not doing.
So many artists are pro-migrants because they are brainwashed, I can say. I'm sorry to say that because they don't want to see the reality, the infrastructure we need to house people when we invite them to come to us. Now we have the situation that we have not enough teachers in schools, not enough school buildings, not enough houses or apartments for all people.
So it wasn't well thought out. It was just a liberal idea of bringing people in, and that they would assimilate over time, and you'd find places for them to live and work and play.
The idea was to have a colorful mixture, and I traveled a lot, and I love to be abroad and to know foreign people, but they bring a different culture what does not compare with our way of living.
Yeah.
So do you? But how? Let me ask you this: how resistant has the migrant culture been to acclimate to assimilating rather into German culture?
It does not assimilate. It's not possible. And the first people who have been pro-migrants now, they are against it because they made bad experiences. And they have understood that's not possible. Even if they try to give the best to integrate them, they don't want it. Because if you know about their culture and their religion, we are non-believers in their eyes, and if you study the Quran, what is written in, you can understand it better. But if you don't have that information, you maybe cannot understand it, and you think, oh, we have to improve and to do much more. It's not possible.
What does that mean, not possible?
It's not possible to, maybe just a few, really a few you can integrate, but not that masses what are coming.
Because it's too many at once.
It's too many at once, and just young men, sportive men without women. And this
wasn't well thought out at all.
No.
But we've had a similar wave here, maybe not in the mass bulk that is coming in Europe. But by and large, maybe it's a difference between American society and German and European society. But people assimilate here, and they've assimilated very, very well. And we don't have those issues. People eat hot dogs, go to baseball games, listen to rock and roll music, whatever. But we don't seem to have that kind of marginalization that is happening in Europe. And I'm just curious as to why people are being marginalized there and not assimilating as opposed to the way it's done here.
We have a social system what is very convenient. And why should they look for a job when they get a good social system? They get houses and everything, so it's not necessary for them.
And yet there's a high unemployment rate in Germany before this happened.
We had a better employment rate, and first we have been told these are specialized people for everything, but most of them maybe
are not. They're unskilled labor.
They even don't know how to write or speak German. They are analphabets.
But would the same argument be made? I mean, I know this sounds like a stretch, but would the same argument be made about subsidizing artists in Germany? Because Europe has always been a lot more progressive in terms of subsidizing artists than we have in America. And people could say, well, artists make pictures, but are they really that productive? I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate. It's not my belief, but these sentiments have been echoed by others. So how would you react to that?
So my reaction is I have social projects for classes worldwide to give help to people what are inside foreign countries where are the real poor people. They need help because they don't have the money to afford that travel. They spend thousands of dollars to come to Germany, and the poor people, the really ones, cannot afford even to come to Germany or to Europe. So I give help to them what are in their own countries.
Right, and you've traveled a lot. I mean, I know that you have work in South Korea, you have work in Monaco, you've traveled to Canada, Bogota, Colombia, Dominican Republic. My God, and you're going to Mexico also, so you're going to meet and probably do some drawings in the sand there. So you're kind of an art ambassador in many ways. Which brings me to this, how can art, how do you think that art can change people? How does art help people?
Art should touch the soul of people. And if you touch the soul, somebody feels good when he sees a black painting, somebody feels good if he sees a white painting. It's important to touch the soul. The style is not important.
And how has your style changed over the years? I think most artists start out doing paintings or making sculpture in one style, and then over a period of time, it shifts, the colors shift, the medium shifts. Has your work stayed consistent, or are you a different artist today than you were 20 years ago?
I would say when I look at artwork, what I did 20 years ago, I could not make it better today. But it's on the spirit of the time when I made it. And when I do artwork today, it's on my present spirit made. Maybe it looks different, maybe you can find something what I did 20 years ago. It's the same. So I don't think development should be, of course. If you don't develop, you are dead.
And speaking of you as an artist, you didn't start out as an artist. You were kind of the corporate antithesis to art. You worked, if I understand correctly, you worked in finance.
My father was painting, and he had a technical profession, and my mother was a housewife, and she made poems. And my parents have been feeling...
Let me be clear. Poems.
Poems.
Okay.
Thank you, my pronunciation.
Yes, I wanted to be clear about that.
Thank
you.
We understand.
Thank you. And they have been fearing that I would get an hungry artist.
We're going to have to cut you off now. We're going to come back to this particular point when we come back from this break.
We'll talk about the origin of the genesis of your
Okay, but we got to get moving now, and we're going to break. This is Westchester Eye on the radio on WVOX, WVOX.com. We're going to be back with our guest, Chris Bleicher, after this commercial break. Stick around, everybody.
Mine.
Mouth off to your heart's content on our open line talk shows. There's no holds barred ever on your Westchester and Bronx soapbox. 1460 WVOX.
1460 WVOX.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back to the final quarter hour of Westchester Eye on the radio. I'm Peter Moses with Ardina Seward. John Sharan could not make it in today. And we have with us today an artist who works in neon and lights named Chris Bleicher. But before we get to Chris, Ardina, next week you can do the show. I will not be on the show next week because Monday night is Yom Kippur and I have to prepare because I do the cooking for my family.
Okay.
For that. So you'll have to figure out whether you and John want to do the show next week or not.
Okay, we will work something out.
I'm sure you will.
I'm sure. And we'll have a guest who that guest is going to be as of yet.
Well, it won't be the person that you thought.
Not the person that I thought, but you know something? We have a page on Facebook, a Westchester Eye on the Radio Facebook page, and that gets updated as often as possible. So the guests will be announced on that page, along with a blurb, a bio, a photo, the whole 9 yards. So if you want to know who's going to be on the show next week, go to that page.
Chris, what most inspires you to do art? Are there any specific things that absolutely enliven you to where you feel I have to put something down artistically on?
Yes, sometimes when I get impressions and I get the best ideas when I'm relaxed. I'm in the mood between being awake and sleeping. I see the pictures and I have to create it. Or if somebody wants to get work on commission, okay, I talk with the person and later I lay down and I see what I have to do and I pray, please give me the right thing, and it flows out of my hand. So I'm just the medium who is allowed to do it.
Which brings us back, before we went to break, we were talking about your transition from a finance career, to art. And how did that happen?
So my father was painting and teach me painting. My mother was writing, but they have been fearing, I repeat, that I would be a hungry artist if I would do that profession, because I wanted to do that. So what they did, I had to go to a bank to study a bank job. And what that bank people told me, oh, you got the wrong job. I said, yes, I know. So I finished that study, and then I was working in the financial business and with stocks and bonds, because you cannot survive through art from the beginning if you are not in a rich family. So slowly I reduced the normal business to bring money in the house in favor of doing artwork. So now I'm living since many years just through artwork, but the time between where I had to do both together, it was very tough. But it was helpful as well to realize big projects, because I know what is requested in business life. So I'm very glad and very grateful that I got this experience.
So, and this is the dilemma of many artists. You know, there's the whole, I want to say myth of the starving artist, but it's not a myth. It happens to be a cold fact. Do you think that beyond art, that artists should also learn fiscal responsibility, how to balance a budget, and maybe have to bite the bullet by working a regular job for a while pursuing their craft on the side?
I think it would be good when an artist begins if he has a regular job, because so he has the freedom to do that art what he likes to do. He is not forced to do a special type of painting just because he sold 3 pieces of that. It gives you liberty, and then you can go more and more step by step. Time is working for you. If you are good enough and if you are strong in your mind, you realize whatever you want.
But for, let's say, for somebody who's working a boring 9-to-5 job, to be able to pay the rent, put food on the table, and they're working as an artist on the side, psychologically, how do they maintain creativity and still do well in both areas, to be able to work that boring 9-to-5 job and then to change hats at the end of the day and become an artist? How do you balance that in your head?
You have to love what you are doing. If you do your business work, you must love it. And if you are doing artwork, you must love your work. You must be possessed by your work. If not, you will never get the energy to do both. It's impossible. So that's the secret.
Well, what about the digital age, which has, some people say that the digital age has transformed the artist's landscape in terms of communication, in terms of technique, in terms of a lot of things, do you think that this has created a new era?
In terms of the intimacy, between the artist and the person reacting to the art.
Yes. Do you think that has changed the concept of art? Some might even say that it's made art more democratic, because what you have is, for example, people who can't draw can basically go online, find a template, print the template, paint it, and then say, I'm a fabulous artist. So how has that caused a shift in the perception of what art is?
What you describe now, some artists are doing it, but I think a real artist knows the old technique of masters. The real study of painting, how to paint shadows, how to paint landscape, or nude painting, or still life. If you can do this, you are allowed to do anything of art you like to do. But first you have to know how is the basic. You need the basic. And after that you can do a free work.
But do you think that will change the what am I trying? Will that change the aesthetic of art? In other words, music, a lot of classical music and the way music was done was changed when electronic music came in. And now you can get beats. You can literally download beats from the computer. So are we witnessing a kind of dumbing down of what art is, of the whole process
or
of art?
At least the idea that art sometimes is a group experience, and if you're just sitting in front of your laptop and experiencing art that way, you're not learning from other people. You're not seeing reactions from other people. You're not. I mean, there may be an added level of intimacy because you brought the art into your home, but it's not in context to anything. It's just what's sitting there on your screen, and I think art has a context to it.
Yeah, it's become what it appears. It appears.
Do you agree with that, by the way?
Yes, I agree totally with you, Peter.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's almost as though art has become easy, and the quality.
Everything has become.
Everything has become easy, but that also impacts the quality of art and what defines good art,
and how the artist gets it out there.
And
it's not just that. I mean, you look at when the internet came about and newspapers decided, hey, this is a great place for us to get our name out there. They were thoughtless, because if they had been thinking about it, they would have monetized it from the very beginning.
Well,
and also aggregators like Huffington Post would have also had to put a paywall up in order for people to read their columnists. But instead, they cannibalized the business.
Well, it's become a free.
And I think the art world needs to worry about those very same market pressures.
Well, the art world has definitely shifted. The business of selling art, making money on art, has changed tremendously.
I bet you creating it has too as well.
Creating it has too,
because you have to make it so that when it looks, when you have some photographer come and create photographs of your art, it's going on a computer. It's not going in the gallery. It's not going in a newspaper, a physical newspaper. It's going online, which has its own issues with harsh lighting and background and all those sorts of things.
That's why people need to come to Chris's show on Wednesday. I'm going to repeat it, Wednesday, September 5th.
Between 6 and 8.
Between 6 and 8. Wine will be served.
84 Orchard Street. Gallery Artifact, because I'm assuming there's a sign there. God knows the numbers in that part of Manhattan sometimes get obliterated by whatever. So you need to see both things, the address and the name of the art gallery.
And the website is www.peepart.com if you want to see more of her work. And then stop by and say hello to Chris.
And you can go online and see it in its harshness. It's the light.
It's harshness of the light. Peter is joking, so I'm going to close this out.
Boy.
Thanks for staying with us, folks, and we will talk to you hopefully next week. God willing, and the creek don't rise. Have a good week.